My boss left a voicemail. Your bonus is canceled. Expect to hear from legal. I didn't argue. Just texted back. Noted. Then I quietly removed my name from the $500,000 business loan, and 48 hours later, 67 missed calls, their company lawyer desperate, pleading for a meeting. The voicemail came in at 7:12 a.m. on a Thursday. Trevor, it's Alan. I'll keep this brief. Bonus is canceled this year. Honestly, we're reevaluating your role for Q3. Let's touch base next week. That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just a cold little hammer tapping against everything I'd built for 5 years. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. I could already imagine the follow-up if I replied emotionally. Alan would spin it as instability, unprofessional behavior. I opened the keyboard, typed one word. Understood. Then I turned off notifications. That same afternoon, I logged into the banking platform we use for the joint business loan, the one I co-signed 2 years ago to keep the company afloat during a tough quarter. Back then, Alan said it was temporary. A gesture of faith. We're in this together, he told me. It had never been temporary. It was a leash. I scheduled a meeting with the loan officer, brought all the records, and filed a release request to officially remove myself. Since my name and credit carried the bulk of the risk, it wasn't as hard as I thought. Tedious, but not hard. I signed the papers in silence. No dramatic music, no thunderclap, just my signature drying on crisp white paper and a subtle click in my chest, like something unlocking. 2 days passed. Saturday morning, I made coffee, sat on the balcony, and flipped through a book I wasn't really reading. My phone was inside, buzzing nonstop, but I didn't get up. Not when it rang, not when it dinged again and again. Eventually, I checked. 21 missed calls. 4 from Alan, 9 from coworkers, 1 from our legal consultant, his voicemail flat and nervous. Trevor, hi, it's Steve. We really need to talk. There's been a situation with the loan. Please give me a call back today. It's urgent. I didn't call back. Instead, I watched the morning sun crawl across the floor and felt nothing but calm. Not joy, not satisfaction. Just a deep, frosty calm spreading through me like ice water. The kind of stillness that comes when you finally stop clinging to something that's been dragging you under. By Sunday, Alan had texted 3 times in a row. Call me. We need to talk. We're having issues with the loan account. You really screwed us here. Each one more frantic than the last. I didn't answer any of them. I didn't need to. They were finally feeling what I'd felt for 2 years, abandoned, used, and drowning. I had been the rope holding their wreck together, and I just let go. Funny thing is, no one asked me why. No apology. No remorse. Just panic. Because to them, I was never a partner. I was a tool. And now I was gone. 3 weeks before that voicemail, we were at a steakhouse in downtown Phoenix, the kind with dim lights and overpriced cocktails that all tasted like ginger. It was supposed to be a team celebration. End of quarter dinner, Alan called it. Just the core people, he said. I wasn't in the mood, but I showed up anyway. I always did. We were seated at a long table by the windows. Alan at the head, of course, with his blazer slung over the back of his chair like some kind of signal. I ended up stuck between Sarah from marketing and Chris, one of our senior project leads. Both of them were already 2 drinks in by the time the bread arrived. Alan raised a glass to surviving another quarter of chaos, and to our upcoming company retreat. Everyone cheered. I sipped my water. Then Alan added, almost offhandedly, oh, and for those of you going, we'll meet at the Scottsdale airport next Friday morning. It'll be tight, but we've got the jet for the whole weekend. People clapped. Sarah hooped. Chris leaned in, grinning. Man, I need the kind of break. My liver's ready. I blinked. Wait, what do you mean those of you going? I asked. Alan turned to me like he hadn't expected the question. Oh, yeah, I meant to talk to you about that. We're keeping the guest list small this year. Just the top performing teams. I stared at him. I've been managing invoices, smoothing out vendor delays, and personally covering rent on the downtown location. He laughed like I'd told a cute joke. I know, Trevor. You've been a solid team player, but you're not really client-facing. The retreat's more about relationship building, you know? Sarah chimed in, tilting her head like a curious bird. Wait, you paid for the office lease? Only the last 3 months, I said quietly. Chris leaned forward. Damn, you still live in that tiny place off 7th Street, right? Man, you must really love this company. I didn't answer. Alan waved it off. Look, it's not about favoritism. It's about optics. If we're flying out clients and partners, we need people who reflect the brand. He said it like it made perfect sense. Like I hadn't spent the last year shoving every spare dollar into patching the holes in a sinking ship. Sarah turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Anyway, that apartment of yours must be a steal. What do you pay? Like $800 a month. Chris laughed. Bet he sleeps under his desk half the time. That's commitment, man. I smiled thinly. My fork scraped across the plate. They were laughing. About my sacrifices. About how cheap I lived to keep them afloat. And no one, not Alan, not Sarah, not Chris, acknowledged what I'd done. Not even a simple thank you. I didn't say a word for the rest of the meal. A week later, I opened Instagram and saw the first post. The whole team, smiling on the steps of some luxury lodge in Sedona. Poolside drinks, chef's table dinner, sunrise yoga, champagne on a private balcony. Alan had even captioned his photo. Only the best for the people who make it happen. #retreat weekend. I stared at it for a long time. Then I turned off my phone and sat in silence. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't part of a team. I was part of their strategy, and I had been a fool. It was the Tuesday after the retreat when Alan texted me, "Hey man, quick thing, could you spot another 1K from the joint loan account? Some travel stuff ran over budget. We'll square it next payroll." I stared at my screen, then scrolled back up. His last message before this one was over a month ago, asking if I could float the lease again, just one more time. There was no thank you in that one either. I switched to Instagram. The last photo from the retreat was a group shot, Alan in mirrored sunglasses, Sarah holding a flute of champagne, Chris with his arm slung around someone from a partner firm. They were laughing in front of a luxury SUV on a red dirt trail, sunset behind them like a postcard. I zoomed in. There were branded fleece vests with the company's new logo. Expensive ones. I hadn't been consulted on those expenses. I hadn't even seen the new logo until that post. The caption read, "Legends only. We build. We rise." I closed the app, then opened my messages again. There was another text from Sarah now. "Hey, heard you're mad about the retreat? You know it wasn't personal, right?" Then from Chris, "Dude, can't believe you're ghosting the team. Thought we were better than that." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email and pulled up my folder titled Receipts. I had been saving everything without even meaning to: screenshots, Venmo requests, emails with subject lines like "emergency coverage this week" and "can you talk to the bank on our behalf?" There were over 60 entries. I clicked through them, one by one. I had covered software licenses, lease deposits, 2 months of payroll for Alan's contractors when a funding wire got delayed, and a $600 Uber charge that Alan later insisted was a client thing. Every single time, they said it was temporary. Every single time, they said it was about the team. "We're building something big, Trevor. You'll see." I saw it now. And I was done. I replied to Alan's message with one word. No, not an explanation, not a debate, just the first real boundary I'd ever drawn. A few minutes later, Chris texted again. "Wow, really? After everything we've done together?" I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I scrolled further back through the thread. March, Chris, man, can you talk to your bank guy? We're hitting a wall. Trevor, I'll call them at lunch. January, Alan, you're a lifesaver, I swear. Next year we all eat. November, Sarah, hey, any chance you can cover the holiday party invoice until we close this quarter? Just till the 15th. All promises. All lies. I opened a new document and started compiling everything. Receipts, transactions, broken promises, and screenshots of every time I asked for something in return and got ignored or brushed off. By the time I finished, the document was 38 pages long. I named it What the Team Owes Me, and I saved it in 3 places, just in case. For the first time in 2 years, I felt something like clarity. Let them laugh. Let them panic. I wasn't the quiet investor anymore. I was the reckoning. It started on a Monday morning. I logged into LinkedIn just to update my resume's header. Nothing drastic, just shifting the wording. But the second I landed on the feed, I saw it. A post from Alan. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from those you trusted the most. Betrayal cuts deep, but real teams adapt and move forward. Hashtag resilience, hashtag leadership. I sat back in my chair. Beneath it, Chris had commented, "Couldn't have said it better. Some people just aren't built for loyalty." Sarah dropped in a crying emoji and, hurt people. We'll rise, like always." The comments poured in: mutual connections, past clients, even former interns, all sending little digital hugs. "Stay strong, Alan. Sad to hear someone would sabotage the team like that. People always reveal themselves in the end." I didn't comment. I didn't react. But I opened a new tab and started uploading screenshots, emails, every dollar I'd poured into the company with nothing but vague promises in return. The receipt from the $2,800 I personally wired to prevent the company lease from defaulting. The PDF showing my name was still on the business loan until 3 days ago. The text where Alan wrote, "Can you cover it again, bro? You're the only one I trust." I didn't write anything angry. I just wrote the truth. I didn't betray a team. I walked away from being used. Over the last 2 years, I've covered over $40,000 in company expenses out of pocket. I co-signed a loan that kept the doors open. I paid contractors when payroll got tight. I did it quietly, trusting promises and shared visions. Then I was excluded from a retreat I helped fund, mocked behind my back, and publicly framed as disloyal. Here are the receipts. Then I posted it. I expected maybe a dozen likes, a few confused comments. What I got instead was wildfire. By lunch, it had been shared by 3 finance professionals I'd never met and a journalist who covered startup fraud. The original post was flooded with new comments, people asking questions Alan couldn't answer, tagging others who needed to see this immediately. Chris tried to clap back. "Don't believe everything you read." Someone responded with a screenshot from my PDF showing Chris's name on an expense he begged me to front. Sarah posted a vague story about disgruntled ex-staff, which someone immediately quote shared with disgruntled or defrauded. Within hours, their feeds went silent. But mine exploded. DMs poured in, some from strangers offering support, others from past contractors who said, "Holy hell, this makes sense now. And they did something similar to me last year." And then came the messages I expected, the private ones from the people who had laughed me out of a retreat I helped fund. "Alan, Trevor, can we please talk? This is spiraling out of control." "Chris, bro, come on. We were friends." "Sarah, you're ruining us. Please stop. Can we fix this?" I didn't answer any of them. I sat in my kitchen that night, eating cold takeout straight from the box, my phone face down on the table. Missed calls stacked on top of missed calls. I could almost hear their panic from here. They'd spent years building a house of mirrors. I just held up the light, and now they were seeing themselves for the first time. I picked the coffee shop because it was quiet and neutral. Brick walls, local art, the kind of place where no one raises their voice. The kind of place where you can dismantle a person calmly, piece by piece, and no one around will even realize what's happening. They showed up 10 minutes late. Alan led the way, wearing that same smug half-smile he always used before asking for a favor. Chris looked pale, eyes flicking around like he was waiting to get ambushed. Sarah wore sunglasses indoors, which would have been funny if this wasn't so pathetic. I didn't stand up, just nodded toward the empty chairs. Let's talk, Alan said as he sat down, man to man. I took a sip of my coffee. He kept going. Look, we all got carried away. The LinkedIn stuff. It was never meant to call you out. It was about venting. You blindsided us. Chris nodded quickly. We just wanted to clear the air. Maybe undo some of the damage. If we can. Sarah leaned forward. Trevor, you know this got out of hand. You were a huge part of what we built. But if you walk away like this, it's going to hurt all of us, including you. I tilted my head. Including me? Alan cleared his throat. I just mean, we all lose if this falls apart. There's still time to work something out. Fix what you did with the loan. I didn't answer, just reached into my bag and slid a manila folder across the table. Alan didn't open it right away. He stared at it like it might explode. Eventually, Chris leaned over and peeked inside. What he saw made him flinch. Is this legal paperwork? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Yup, I said. Confirmation that my name was removed from the loan. Last week. You'll start seeing the difference in about 3 business days. Alan's jaw tightened. You really did it. Sure did. I reached into the folder again and pulled out a phone. Pressed play. Alan's voice crackled through the speaker. Trevor's just a placeholder. You keep him sweet. He pays for everything. Then you cut him loose when the valuation hit 7 figures. Silence. Chris looked like he'd swallowed glass. You recorded me? Alan hissed. I shrugged. You recorded me every time I presented to the board. Remember? You called it transparency. I learned from the best. Sarah finally spoke, her voice thin. What do you want from us? I leaned back. Nothing. They blinked. I don't want your apology, I said. I don't want my money back. I don't want to fix it. I just want you to feel what I felt. Disposable. Used. Alone. Like the floor might drop out at any second. Alan tried to say something, but I cut him off. You told everyone I betrayed the team. You left out the part where I was the team financially, legally, logistically. You had a golden goose, and you kicked it until it flew away. Chris looked down, lips pressed tight. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. Alan's voice was quieter now. This is going to destroy the company. No, I said, calm as ever. This is going to reveal it. I stood up, gathered the folder, and slid one last sheet of paper across the table. A timeline, a breakdown, everything I'd contributed, dates, amounts, and the names attached to every request. Keep it, I said. It's the last thing I'll ever give you. Then I walked out. They didn't follow. For the first time in years, I was done explaining myself, and they were out of lifelines. I didn't expect to see Martin there. I'd barely made it a block from the coffee shop when I saw his car, an old silver Lexus, parked on the side of the road. He was leaning against it, arms crossed, looking like he'd been waiting for me. Martin Whitaker, my old mentor, the man who taught me more about business in one lunch meeting than Alan taught me in 5 years of fake team building. He gave a slight nod as I approached. They take the bait? He asked. I smirked, swallowed it whole. He pushed off the car and motioned toward the sidewalk. Let's walk. We moved in silence for a moment, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the cracked pavement. I followed the posts, he finally said. Didn't say anything publicly. Didn't want to interfere unless you were really done. I was really done, I said. He nodded like he already knew that. They always underestimated you, he said. Thought you were a quiet workhorse. Never realized you were keeping the whole machine running. They're realizing it now. We reached a corner and paused. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. When I opened it, I saw exactly what it was: shareholder documentation. My name, his investment firm's name, the company name, a controlling interest. I looked up slowly. What is this? I bought out their remaining leverage last week, he said simply. They burned through too many bridges. Too much debt. The valuation's a joke now. But I didn't do it for them. He looked me in the eye. I did it for you. I stood there stunned. You're the only one who ever treated it like a business, Trevor, not a lifestyle. I watched you hold it together, and I also watched them sink it. My hands tightened around the papers. So what now? Martin smiled. Now, you take the wheel. You have controlling interest, full voting power. I already submitted the board paperwork. I let out a slow breath. Alan's gonna lose it. He already knows, Martin said. They got the notice about an hour ago. He reached into his coat again and handed me a second envelope, sealed, crisp, heavier than it looked. What's this? Final transfer details. Their time's up. The company's yours now. Clean house. Or burn it down. That part's up to you. I stared at the envelope, then at Martin. I thought you retired, I said. I did, he replied. But even in retirement, I don't like watching good people get screwed. He put a hand on my shoulder. I should have stepped in earlier. I watched them bleed you dry, and I told myself you had it handled. I was wrong. I didn't know what to say. For once, I was speechless. Martin smiled again, wry, calm, like always. You know what to do now, Trevor. Build something real. And this time, no parasites. Then he turned and walked away, hands in his pockets. And I stood on the corner, holding the keys to everything they tried to steal from me. Only now, they weren't keys to their kingdom. They were mine. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne toast, no rooftop moment with arms raised in triumph. Just me, back at my apartment, sitting in the same dented kitchen chair I'd owned since grad school, a lukewarm cup of coffee in my hand. It was over, but it didn't feel like a victory. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Alan. I didn't bother listening. The first few had been angry, demands, threats, gaslighting attempts dressed as reconciliation. But as the week dragged on and they started to understand what losing control really meant, the tone shifted. Desperation crept in. He left one message where his voice cracked halfway through, said something about old friends, and a misunderstanding. I deleted it halfway through. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. That same day, I got a text from Chris. You don't owe me anything, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I read it twice, then locked my phone. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he was trying to cover himself in case this all went public. I didn't care. Sarah emailed me. Subject line, just hear me out. I didn't open it. People think the hardest part is fighting back, but it's not. The hardest part is walking away and staying away, letting the silence settle without rushing to fill it. For the first time in years, I had no one expecting me to solve something. No invoices to float. No team to bail out. No boss pretending my sacrifice was part of the journey. Just me. One night that week, I called Martin, just to check in. How's it feel? He asked. Quiet, I said. He laughed. Good. Quiet is where you start figuring out what you want instead of what everyone else needs. Before we hung up, he said something that stuck with me. You didn't just walk away from a toxic company, Trevor. You walked away from the version of yourself that thought being used was the same as being needed. That hit harder than I expected. The next morning, I woke up early, not for emails or crises, just because I wanted to. I made coffee, sat on the tiny balcony off my living room, and watched the city wake up. The same skyline I used to barely notice on my way to the office now looked different. Not prettier, just real, solid. My phone sat untouched beside me. Another voicemail from Alan. I swiped it away. A text from Chris. I left it unread. I didn't need closure from them. I had it already. The sun crept higher. My coffee cooled. Somewhere below, traffic hummed like a new beginning. I didn't have a plan yet. No brilliant startup idea. No immediate blueprint. But I had space. And I had peace. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight, just my own. And that was more than enough.